Welcome to Thriving on GLP-1s. My name is Megan Ostler. I'm a registered dietitian, and I am here to help you feel confident and thrive on and after your GLP-1 journey. So today we are laying the foundation for everything ahead in this 12-week course. We're going to be understanding how these medications work and why your nutrition still is important and what that looks like, what nutrition things you need to prioritize now and in the future with GLP-1 medications. So this is the outline of what's coming up. Today, we're understanding how these medications work, why nutrition still matters. Then we're going to be deep diving into some of those nutrition priorities and understanding how to change our thinking and how to support our overall health on GLP-1s. So we're going to be covering all of these topics over the next 12 lessons, and I'm excited to get started. So lesson 1, you're going to learn 3 things. First, how GLP-1 medications act inside your body to lower appetite and improve blood sugar control. Second, why nutrition is still essential, because these medications guide hunger and food, but they don't guide your food choices. They don't shape what kind of weight you lose. That's going to be determined by how you're eating, the type of exercise you're doing. And then third is the 3 nutrition priorities you're going to use throughout the program. So protein, fiber, and hydration are going to be pretty major focuses, as well as overall health and balanced plates. This lesson will give you an overview, and then we're going to be going into more depth in future lessons. So first things, how do GLP-1s work? GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's a hormone in your small intestines, and it's actually naturally released after you eat. So we produce GLP-1. This medication gives us a little bump in it. It travels through your bloodstream, and it signals several organs all at once. In the pancreas, it boosts insulin when glucose rises, and it suppresses glucagon, keeping your blood sugar more stable. In the stomach, it slows emptying. The technical term is gastric emptying. So basically, it slows down how quickly the food is moving from your stomach into your small intestine. This means that food stays in there longer, so your digestion is slower and you feel fuller longer. And in the brain, particularly in the hypothalamus, it binds appetite control centers and it amplifies that message of, I've had enough. So it reduces appetite, it increases your satiety, and it lowers that food reward in your brain. So food is just less rewarding. Some people will call this decreasing food noise, right? They're like, I just don't feel driven to eat sugar all the time. I'm not thinking about food all the time. And when I do eat it, it's not quite as rewarding. It's very helpful in our goals. Medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide mimic that same hormone of GLP-1, and it activates those GLP-1 receptors continuously. That combination of slowly emptying, more balanced insulin, and stronger satiety signals overall helps to reduce intake and helps with weight loss goals. So that's how GLP-1s work in our system. So this is a natural hormone. We're just giving our bodies a little boost. So what does this mean for your nutrition? Well, the GLP-1 creates appetite suppression, and that's really powerful, but this suppression is not selective, meaning that you still choose what you're going to eat. You're probably going to eat less of everything overall, which puts you at risk of not meeting your nutrient needs. If you're eating less fiber, less protein, less micronutrients like vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. That's why small, purposeful meals really matter. Every bite now needs to work harder to fuel your muscles, support your gut, maintain steady energy, even when your calories drop, right? Because again, that appetite suppression isn't selective. It's not going to only make you not eat carbs, or it's likely going to make you eat a little less protein, fiber, carbs, fat, and micronutrients. So we want to help with that. The good news is that for many people, those healthier choices actually become a little easier because of that satiety in our brains, right? That drive to eat just becomes less. That food noise goes down. And then also, occasionally for some people, the high fat or the high sugar foods actually make you feel a little bit sicker, and they might cause more GI distress. And so you might be able to not tolerate those foods, and it might make it easier to choose more helpful foods, but that's not always the case. Most people are on these medications to lose weight, but the question is, what kind of weight are we losing? If I ask my clients, most of them are going to say, I want to lose fat, not muscle. I assume that you're in the same boat with that. And in studies of GLP-1 medications, people typically lose around 15 to 20% of their starting weight if their BMI is over 30. Under that, it can range a little bit. And early research really warned that a lot of this, up to 25% on average, came from muscle loss or lean mass, right? So bone muscle. Now, in some small cohorts of, people who weren't as heavy or people who were older, not as active, some of that loss reached up to 40% of that weight loss was from muscle. And that's a big deal. So we want to spare our muscle. And the good news is that we can. With adequate protein intake, regular resistance training, and movement, we can really help reduce that loss. We've seen in traditional weight loss studies that higher protein intake and exercise help to preserve lean mass. In other words, we can protect our muscles by pairing the medication with smart nutrition and movement interventions. And this is what I've seen with my clients as I've worked one-on-one. Many of them with proper lifestyle interventions do not lose close to 25% of that weight loss coming from lean mass. It is much lower. Now, we're still waiting for really large studies to confirm this, to confirm what we've seen in other large studies with overall weight loss to ensure that GLP-1s follow that same trend. But there have been case studies, small studies, and in my clinical experience, I have also seen that when we prioritize protein and movement, we help to spare that muscle in weight loss. And this matters because muscle is metabolically active. It burns more calories while we're at rest. It helps to stabilize our blood sugars now and after GLP-1 medication. It supports mobility and strength and healthy aging. If we're losing too much lean muscle mass, it's going to make maintenance much harder in the long run after we come off of GLP-1 medications, and it's going to make it harder to recover from workouts and reach our goals for activity. So adequate protein intake in most studies shows that around 1.2 to 1.6 grams of kilogram of body weight helps to preserve muscle while allowing for fat loss and a calorie deficit. So this is why nutrition isn't just optimal, right? It's protective. We really need it. We'll be going into more depth in this in lesson 2, and you'll have a handout that's going to walk you through exactly what your protein goals are going to be, how to break that up between meals. But for now, keeping in mind that we need protein, it's going to spare our muscles, it's going to make weaning off of GLPs easier, and it's going to help us with our fitness goals. Okay, so GLPs, again, they change how much you eat, but the nutrients still run every system in your body, from muscles, like we were just talking about, to hormone balance. And when appetite falls and meal size shrinks, nutrient needs don't shrink. You still need the same amount of vitamins and minerals and things like that. Now, you're going to be eating less carbs and fat, but your micronutrient intake needs don't shrink. Your muscle or your protein intake needs are actually likely higher. So protein is going to support that muscle, fiber is going to support that digestion, and micronutrients and hydration are going to support every organ system. Without them, we're going to experience more fatigue, more constipation, slower metabolic rate, and the scale might start to creep up even on a medication like GLP-1 medications, and especially after. So that's the gap that nutrition is going to fill. The aim is to maximize your nutrient intake even when meals are smaller, and we'll be covering that more in lesson 4. So think of this as a partnership. The medication gives you momentum. By calming hunger and stabilizing blood sugar, which stabilizes cravings, it sets the stage. But nutrition is what builds and maintains those results. It keeps your body nourished. It supports your metabolism. It helps you transition confidently when the medication stops. So both are essential parts of this story, of this journey that you're on. Your top 3 nutrition priorities, well, during this course, and again, there will be more as we move through, but for right now, the top 3 across this series are going to be protein, quality fuel, fiber, and hydration, and creating those balanced plates from quality fuel. So this is going to help with side effects and feeling confident on the medication and after. So they're simple, they're evidence-based, and we're going to cover them in depth throughout this course. But first, we're going to just highlight them a little bit. So number 1, we've talked about this a little bit, but protein is going to preserve that lean muscle mass. It's going to support our immune system. It's going to support tissue repair. Each meal should include protein. About the size of your palm of your hand is a minimum. Now, you might need more, and we're going to talk more about that in lesson 2. We'll get you your exact grams that you're going to be aiming for. But for this week, we're working on awareness. We're looking at where could I add more so that next week you go in full steam ahead and know, okay, I already looked at this. I already tracked. I know my protein isn't high enough at breakfast. I know my protein isn't high enough at snacks. Okay. So, but this week is all about awareness. This can look like a lot of different things. It can look like Greek yogurt or eggs at breakfast. It might look like fish or beans or chicken or tofu at lunch and dinner. Small portions are the focus here. We want to repeat these continuously. They do far more good than occasional large servings. So even if you're going to eat a 12-ounce steak at dinner, that's not going to be as beneficial for your body overall than spreading the protein out. And we'll go into more depth again next week on that. So on this week's handout, you will see a 3-day awareness tracker. Start noticing. How much protein are you currently getting at your meals and snacks? And how do you feel after you eat one that's maybe higher or lower in protein? How is that impacting your GI health? Are you having a hard time digesting protein? We might need to switch up the sources of the type of protein that you're getting. Priority number 2, and what I often see lacking in clients both on and off GLP-1 medications when they first come to work with me, is fiber and hydration. So fiber is going to support digestion. Digestion is often thrown off by GLP-1 medications. You might notice some constipation. You might notice some looser stools. You might notice bloating, reflux, all of that. Fiber is going to help. So fiber is going to support that digestion. It's going to balance those blood sugars even more. It's going to help support heart health. It's going to feed the microbiome. And that's really important. That gut-brain connection is something that we're going to cover in depth in lesson 3. Hydration is essential because it complements the fiber. Fiber cannot do its job without water. Fiber needs water to help soften stools, increase GI transit time, bind up estrogen, cholesterol, and waste, and excrete it. Okay, so we're going to aim to have at least one produce serving at each meal and a glass of water before each meal. In future lessons, we're going to increase how much fiber you're getting, but that's the aim for this week. Because these medications are going to slow transit time and food is sitting in your stomach longer, it might be hard to drink enough water just at meals. That's why we want to do at least a glass at meals to help move everything through, support the fiber intake, create the gel, things like that, right? That are going to help our GI system. But we also want to include water between. If you cannot tolerate water with your meals, which can happen on these medications, right? We just feel so full that you can't tolerate drinking water too. It's going to increase reflux or things like that if you're overly full. So if that's the case, then you're going to need to really prioritize water in between meals, slowly sipping throughout the day. So fill up that water bottle and try to slowly sip between meals if you can't. Now, another option is to choose high water foods, things like soups or fresh fruits or vegetables that are going to have more hydration in them can be another great way if you're not tolerating liquids with solid food at your meals. But again, that's going to depend on how you're tolerating it. And it's kind of a case-by-case scenario. We're going to be covering some of these common problems and symptoms and side effects that might arise during our weekly calls. So if this is something that you're struggling with, let me know and we can address it more in our weekly call. Now, keep in mind, I talked about how we're going to be slowly building up our fiber intake over time and how it's going to help with GI distress. It's going to help with constipation and things like that, bloating, but that's if we do it gradually. We want to gradually increase our fiber intake. Otherwise, too much fiber all at once is going to actually worsen bloating. It's going to worsen gastric emptying or how quickly the food's moving from our stomach to our GI system, which could impact reflux and things like that. So we want to slowly build up. The reason for this is because fiber is food for our microbiome. As we fill our GI system with extra food, if we don't have the microbes there to break it down, then the food actually just sits there, not being broken down, and it ferments because we don't break down fiber. Fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate. The microbes in our microbiome, they do. It's food for them. But if they're not there, if they haven't reproduced enough and there's not enough of them to break down all that food, then it's going to sit, ferment, and start to create bloating, gas, and potential worse GI symptoms. So we don't want to go from 10 grams up to 30 grams in one day. It will have major consequences for our GI health. Instead, we want to slowly go up. The recommendation that I give my clients is to increase 2 to 4 grams from their baseline and then hold that steady for at least a week, maybe 2, and then do another 2 to 4 grams. So what that might look like, the average American is eating 15 grams of fiber, 14 to 15 grams of fiber a day. The recommendation is over 30 grams. So if you're the average and you're eating, 14 to 15 grams, that means that this week we're going to increase that number by 2 to 4 grams. That's why the goal is to just add an extra produce serving at your meals, because that'll do it, right? If we just add an extra serving of fruit or something like that, that's going to help to increase that about 2 to 4 grams. And then we keep that steady. So we're aiming now for, anywhere from 16 to 18 grams of fiber. We're going to hold that for a week or 2. And then we're going to bump it up again. Maybe we're going to go to 20 grams, hold for a week or 2, 22, 24 grams, hold for a week or 2. So it might take a month or 2 to get up to our fiber goals, and that's okay. That's going to give our body time to adjust. It's going to give the microbes in our GI system time to replicate and reproduce so that there's more of them and they can handle more food. So the food's not sitting there fermenting, causing gas and bloating. Priority number 3 is to start building balanced meals. A balanced plate delivers 4 things: protein for structure, produce, fruits and vegetables for micronutrients and fiber, purposeful carbohydrates, usually high fiber carbohydrates for steady energy and support of the microbiome. And then we have healthy fats for hormones, satiety, vitamin absorption, right? So even when appetite is low, these are still the categories that we're aiming for. We still want to make sure that all of our meals contain all 4 of these essential nutrients. When you're feeling really full, really fast, choose really nutrient-dense foods. Think less volume, more nutrition. You can also use really soft textures. Things like soups and smoothies might work really well, especially for things like protein that might be a little harder to digest when you're feeling extra full. Choosing liquid protein sources might be helpful. And then combining these foods in small servings. Even if you're not able to eat large amounts, making sure that you include all 4 of these to help balance that plate is going to help set you up for success now and in the future when your appetite comes back. We can adjust these and help with that. One way that we might adjust is the types of proteins that we're choosing. So many of my clients on GLP-1s utilize liquid protein sources to help them hit their protein goals, spare muscle, and create a little bit more GI comfort during that. However, they're quickly absorbed. They don't keep us full quite as long as solid sources. So then when they wean off of GLP-1 medications, we're going to move away from liquid protein sources and more into solid protein sources, because that is going to help support them and their appetite. When their appetite starts to climb back up, the solid protein is going to keep them fuller, longer, still spare their muscle, but help them maintain those results. We're going to hit common pitfalls right now so that you can avoid them. I know, lesson 1, we'll go into these more in depth later, but I want to make sure that you know some of the common ones so that you can avoid them from the get-go. So common pitfalls that I see with my clients on GLP-1s are, number 1, skipping meals. This accelerates that lean muscle loss and it puts you at risk for malnutrition. We want to avoid only light foods, right? Maybe you've been doing a lot of dieting and you've been counting Weight Watcher points or things like that, and it's been moving you and your focus towards high volume foods, light foods, things that are going to fill you up on less calories. We want to shift that a little bit with GLPs. Otherwise, we risk not meeting our nutrient needs. So we want to avoid only light or diet type foods that are going to fill us up because we're already feeling really full, and it might make it so that we're not meeting our nutrient needs. So especially when hunger is really low, nutrient density is going to be key, making sure that we're including foods that are dense in vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, phytonutrients, that we can meet our needs on a smaller volume, maybe the opposite of what you've been doing. And then as we wean off, that's where we might include some of those more high volume, low nutrient foods. The other thing is avoid dehydration if you can. I know it can be hard when we're feeling really full and we're not feeling very thirsty, but it's going to magnify nausea and constipation if you're not drinking enough water, and it can magnify that bloating as well. So especially if you're having any of those 3 symptoms, prioritize water. And then we want to make sure that we are eating consistently and we're not relying on the medication to do all of the work. So one area that I see a lot of clients fall into and sometimes not even lose weight on these medications is if they assume that they don't have to worry about their nutrition at all, right? The medication is going to keep me from overeating, so I don't have to worry about what I'm eating. The medication is going to do all that work. And that's just not the case. Medication, again, it gives you that momentum, but your choices are what's going to really move the needle here. So I've seen clients take these medications and not lose weight if they're not managing the types of foods they're eating, they're eating consistently throughout the day, which is still sets them up to overeat if they're not, and maybe still engaging in a lot of emotional eating and things like that. So if you're not addressing all of those things, this may not work very well. So again, don't assume that medication is going to do all the work. You still got to put in some work so that you can thrive on the medication and after. Again, medication drives the loss, nutrition defines it. The type of quality of loss you're going to have. Are you going to lose fat? Are you going to lose muscle? Are you going to lose energy and overall comfort or not? By choosing the right things, we can really enhance your journey and make this a really positive, enjoyable journey. So you have your handout for lesson 1, and you're going to pick one simple focus. What are you going to focus on this week? Even adding protein to breakfast or a glass of water at lunch. I know these don't feel like big things, but it's these tiny baby steps that are going to help move the needle here. So pick something that feels doable. I always tell my clients, don't be afraid of easy, be afraid of unsustainable. We want easy. We want you to be able to sustain this. So pick something that you can, because we're slowly building these habits. It's okay if we start small. So you're going to see on your worksheet that we're going to define that. You're also going to see 2 things, your weekly goal and your minimum habit. And you might be thinking, what's the difference? Well, your weekly goal is that skill that you're trying to develop. Practicing things like adding protein at breakfast. Your minimum habit is the simplest version of this. This is what's going to help drive consistency. So this is the worst day case. This is what are you going to do when you are super busy, you have not prepared anything. What is that going to look like? It might be eating protein before noon. That might be the minimum. Okay, I didn't get enough protein at breakfast, but I will make sure I eat some protein before noon. So this is, again, kind of your backup plan. I often tell my clients to think of a dial. If you can't turn the dial up to 4 on one day for whatever reason, what's dial 1? The goal is to not turn the dial off. The goal is to not just, I couldn't get it, so I'll just not worry about my nutrition the whole rest of the day. It's hitting the minimums. So what's your weekly goal? Let's aim for that. Let's try to get it. But then having a backup plan in place. What is your minimum habit? Then you're going to track for awareness for 3 days. This can be just tracking overall patterns, like did I get a source of protein at every meal, or it might be tracking grams if you'd like to. And then I want you to write down how your energy and fullness felt on those days after those meals. Start to notice the patterns. We're really aiming for patterns over perfection here. So what are you learning from this? As you're getting more aware, what is your body communicating that you need to take in stock of so that you can better prepare next week and do even better on this journey. So if you want to get a better idea, again, you can do some tracking, maybe not just awareness tracking, but gram tracking. I don't think that's something you have to do for the rest of your life, but it can be extremely helpful to get a better idea of where you might be lacking and where we can fill in those gaps in future weeks. And next week, we're going to be filling in those gaps specifically in protein. Remember, you're not just eating less, you're learning to nourish intentionally. These next 12 lessons are all about giving your body what it needs to thrive, not just lose weight. So you're doing great. I'm so glad you're here, and we'll see you in lesson 2.